Dude, you all trimmed up.
Yeah, I had to. It was getting a little scruffy. So what happens is the right side of my facial hair grows longer than the left side,
Oh, see.
and so it was starting to get too long. And so I was like, all right, it's time to trim her up real quick.
Oh, looks good, man. I feel like it's my mustache that grows longer, and then my wife would be like, "You got to trim those over your lips."
Yeah.
Bugging me.
Oh, I know. I have to do that too, right here, and then I'll get like these wild ones that just kind of poke out, and I'm always like, I'm trying to eat and I'm getting food. I'm like, yeah, nope, gotta get the razor and
Yep.
Yeah.
Keep it clean.
Nikki, what's up?
That's right. Ghost.
Colin.
Right, man. I was last game for him, but hey, here we go. Your stars, W. Your stars.
Yeah. Colin, you're gonna have to keep us up to date. It starts at 7, so you'll have to keep me up to date in the chat. You know what's going on.
Yeah. Well, yesterday, did you watch any yesterday's game with Vegas and Edmonton?
I didn't get to.
Okay, so if you would have, Edmonton lost. Go figure. There you go. But Vegas won. But Vegas scored in the first 15 seconds, and then right after that, Edmonton scored again in the first 55 seconds within the first minute. It was 1-1. Edmonton the second one, and then after a while, it was just they couldn't keep up with Vegas and Edmonton too. The crowd was going nuts.
Dan, what's up, buddy?
It's good to have everybody back. It's a good start to the chat today.
I know.
Hope y'all are ready. We got a guest coming on here in just a little bit. Now, in doing some research for this, W, I was looking at top offensive prospects in high school football, and there is a guy in Florida. He's a tackle. You know what his first name is?
What's that?
Jimothy.
No, really?
Yeah, 100%. Jimothy Lewis. Yeah, he's a 4-star prospect going to Ole Miss.
That's funny.
Yeah. I was like, oh my gosh, I haven't heard that one yet. So that was awesome.
Smitty. Well, maybe we'll have to try to find a way to get Jimothy on ours so we can have Jimothy and Jimothy.
Yeah, I know. I would have to change my name for the day. Oh man, yeah, Colin. Yeah, we might have to, man. Keeps on rolling with all the help here. There are no Canadian teams left. Is that the case?
Yep.
Man, that is so sad. I feel like, and I just can't believe it. It's Toronto, correct? That we talked about last week. How it's been, I think, so long. I just don't understand how a city that big with that big of a market can't win. I don't get it.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I don't know. It's crazy that. Well, I think since Edmonton lost, it marks 30 years that a Canadian team hasn't won the Stanley Cup.
You know what it is? It's collusion.
It's collusion.
I mean, just hear about it. Chicago just got the lottery in the NHL. So I'm just saying, it's collusion.
And I didn't watch it or anything, but the way that they described it, the way it went down, I'm like, that just seems fishy. They go to break and they come back and they're like, oh yeah, this team has the third, gets the third pick. And they're like, people are like, wait, we didn't see what happened.
Yeah. I like how Colin, you just said Seattle scored.
Don't mess with me. I know it starts at 7 Central Time, so don't try to throw me off my game already.
Yeah. No, it'll be a good crowd. It'll be a good game. So before we have Casey come on the show, so for those of you who joined the chat already, thank you so much. If you have a question you just want to throw out, we got a little bit of time before we hit record. We'll probably hit record right before we send the link or whatever, or right before he joins. And then we can go ahead. Sure. And then we can go ahead and just jump in from there. So it's my bad. Yeah. Hey, look at that. He's fact checking himself. Love it.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I'm gonna say I know for sure it started at 7 because I looked this morning. I was like, I wonder what time it starts. I was hoping it'd be a little bit later start so I wouldn't miss a whole lot of it because for recording tonight. But I was like 7. Okay, I was like, all right, I'm gonna have to make sure someone in the chat is keeping me up to date while we're going.
Well, what's nice is that your Dodgers don't play until 9:10, so You got
That's
quite a bit of time before.
Jordy. Let's go.
We got a couple. Everyone's shouting out Jordy. Welcome to the show, man.
Jordy is one of the breakers, the streamers on Backyard Breaks, or Backyard Hits. He's one of the guys, so he stopped by to see what's going on.
Wow, man, I appreciate the support. Thanks for coming, checking it out. And it's a great question. It's a great question. No official commitments yet, but he's going to talk to us about the experience, the whole thing. You know what? I always wanted to be a college athlete. I always thought I would one of these days, and it never happened.
I know, right?
I was like, what would that have been like? So now today we're going to live out our glory days of recruitment and what the process is like. The best prospects in all of high school football going into the next year's class 2024.
I mean, the kid's the top interior offensive lineman in the class. So I'm telling you, if you get a chance, you got to go check out his highlight. I'll find a way to like drop the link somewheres.
Well, if you text it to me, then I'll put it in the show description and the podcast notes whenever it posts tomorrow.
Okay, yeah. If you know anything about offensive line play and stuff like that, he is the way he plays. It lines up with everything I love about offensive linemen. So it makes me super excited to get to talk to him. See how this has gone for him being a top 150 player in the whole country.
That's crazy
for this recruiting class. And what's it like being the big dog getting recruited by the big dogs? I mean, we'll get to it. He gave us a little information last night on his official visits and stuff like that, and the list is just pretty much you name off the top schools in college football and Power 5 football, and he'll be there at some point.
Yeah, I love it. It's gonna be good. Did you see the OU got the number 1 overall seed?
Yeah, I mean,
who else
is there? Cool. Yeah, not even a question. The crazy thing is that over the last 4 seasons, they've had at least one winning streak of 40 plus wins.
Yeah,
it's unfathomable how. I mean, you thought there possibly could have been
you thought there could have been maybe one of the SEC teams or maybe one of Pac-12, would have snuck in there, but they even kind of beat each other up a little bit in the tournament, both conferences.
Yeah, Smitty, he has not committed yet. He hasn't set a date or anything, but he has set up his official visits to 6 schools, and they're all here in the next couple months. So I would imagine probably after the 6 visits he'll make his decision. So yeah, well, I don't know if he has a timetable.
Yeah.
So early signing period is usually around December 19th or so.
Yeah.
And
so by all these colleges.
Yeah, and he may be like a lot of them that want to get the decision over with before his his senior year starts. So he may take his final visit and within a couple weeks make his decision. I don't know for sure, and maybe he'll speak on that as we're talking. But that's one thing that we reassured him, is that our stance was nothing about, because one of the schools that are big on the trail is Oklahoma. Me and Jimothy, you guys know we're biased, Oklahoma fans. And the one thing we told him was like, we're not going to push you towards any school. We're not going to pressure you to, drop any information that you don't want to take, let everyone know yet. We're just here to get your, perspective on how things have gone, throughout this recruiting process, and just kind of get to know you. Let people get to know, Casey Poe, what, got him into the game of football and stuff like that. So that's all we're here for, get a little bit of recruiting information too. I mean, he's already gave us, a bit, and the stuff that is public record it's out there too. So, but yeah, that was we didn't want to make him, feel more stressed in a situation that's already super stressful for a 17, 18-year-old kid.
Yeah. Just have some fun, and then let us walk along that journey with him a little bit here. I did really love this right here. Look at this comment from Ian. I 100% agree. It's insane. It's absolutely insane. So, Yeah, you can't ever get anything past him. I already thought about a couple of trivia questions for baseball here a little bit later on, but we'll see.
I'm not the sharpest with baseball, so you may be able to get me.
I feel like you are. We both have had our misses when it comes to baseball, so we'll see. So we're about to jump onto the podcast with Casey is joining us. So we're going to do our quick intro to the podcast, and then we're going to jump into it. So here we go. Tubby, you ready?
We're ready.
All right. 3, 2, 1, go. Welcome back, everyone, to the W Podcast. Today, it's myself, Jimothy, alongside, as always, is the one and only Tubby here with the W Sports Podcast. Tubby, you feeling good? You feeling ready today?
I'm so ready. I've had this like nervous excitement for like the last 2-3 weeks, with our special guest coming on tonight. I've been excited, but also been nervous about it because, I mean, this is a big deal for us.
100%, man. And if you didn't know this already, our podcast is on YouTube, and today is the day that we are bringing on another guest for the episode, special guest. One of the top recruits in all of college football, one of the best in Texas. He is a class of 2024 offensive lineman, Casey Poe. Welcome to the show, man. Thank you so much for taking some time just to hang out with us on a Monday evening.
Yeah, for sure. Thank y'all for having me on.
Yeah, man. Tubby, I'm gonna let you take off with it, man. You seem hyped and you're ready to go.
I'm ready. I've been excited about this because I've followed you over the last last year or so. Once one recruiting cycle starts going away, I start looking forward to the other one as big college football fan, and I like evaluating talent. Especially recruits that are possibly going to the school that I root for. And so I've seen your tape and stuff over the last few years, and I'll just say, you've got that. I look for a couple of things when I look at interior offense line, and you've got that it factor of you got a mean streak, and anyone that knows offensive line, that's something you want. You got that mean streak, that finisher's mentality. Absolutely love the way you play the game of football.
I appreciate it. I really do.
Yeah, no other way to do it in Texas, right, though, Casey? I mean, I feel like that's the way you got to do it if you want to compete.
Oh, yeah, the Friday night lights down here in Texas are different. If you ain't got that mean streak, then it's just not going to work out for you. You got to be a different breed to play down there.
Yeah, 100%. So I'm curious, what's the biggest crowd you think you played in front of so far?
Gosh, the biggest crowd, that's a hard one. So that I've actually played in front of personally for like 2 snaps. It was my freshman year, and we made it to the state championship round. It was us against Argyle. And playing at AT&T Stadium, that was a pretty big crowd. But the one that I've played in personally, like for most of the game, it was El Campo's second round of 2022. And we played McLean Stadium over there in Waco, and people just filled that place up. It was really loud. It was really exciting to play in.
Yeah. So, athletes are creatures of habit. So I was wondering, do you have like a superstition or like a ritual that you have to do before the game? Because I know as an athlete in high school,
100% had one. It was the weirdest thing.
So me and Jimothy, we went to high school together, and it's going to sound weird. If I did not throw up before the game, I played like crap. So I had to throw up before the game. So do you have like a superstition or like something you have to do before the game to make you feel ready to go?
Yeah, so I do kind of 2 things. One is something I wear. I have a bracelet that I don't know if y'all can see it. There it is. Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm. I have to wear that before every day. My girlfriend, whenever we first started dating, gave this to me. It's Morse code for "I love you," and so it just kind of reminds me, like, even when I'm halfway through the game, it's like, okay, calm down. Everything's gonna be all right. Kind of helps me reset. And then my grandmother passed away 3 years ago, and so every time the national anthem hits, I'll listen to the first part of it, and then I'll say a prayer, and then I'll talk to her kind of as it's finishing up, and then once I do that, I'm ready to go. We're rolling after that.
Love it.
That's a little bit better of a routine. No offense.
yeah.
Hey, I think throwing up's great. Don't get me wrong. I do that too.
Yeah.
Get you.
I would sit there and be like, "Hey, man, you good?" He goes, "Yep, we're good."
Oh, yeah, we're rocking.
Oh, yeah.
All right, so we're curious about this. So neither Tubby or myself were, Division I athletes, man, let alone Power 5 athletes, and that's kind of the recruitment cycle that you've been on. So when did this all start? When did the wheels start turning? Like, hey, this may actually happen at the next level. I mean, were you like this from when you were, just Pop Warner football or whatever?
I mean, I got whenever I was young, like, oh, you're gonna be this really good football player and have all this size. I mean, as a kid, I was like, yeah, sure. I mean, I'm a big kid. I'll see what I can do. Maybe go get a D2 scholarship or something. And then my freshman year, Josh Coggin, he's a tight ends coach over at Texas Tech now, but he was at Austin Peay. And he saw me. His brother's my head coach here in Lindale, so he kind of got some film sent out to him. He sent it to his head coach. The head coach liked me, so they went ahead and offered me then. And I was right at the end of my freshman year, so okay, this might be able to work. And then we got down to, it was Thanksgiving of my sophomore year, and kind of picked up a couple offers. I think I picked up 5 by the end of that kind of week, and it just kind of took off from there. It's been a blessing ever since, and it's been a whirlwind ever since.
I mean, yeah, I bet it's just been crazy, having you having all these coaches and people coming to, at you trying to get your come see them and stuff like that. Have you had any just awestruck moment that you went to a campus and you met a coach or a player or someone and you're like, oh man, I'm really face to face with him right now?
All right, so it's something that it's gonna sound goofy, but it's called the Nick Saban effect, and it's whenever everybody that I've talked to has had it. You step on the campus for the first time, and for me, it was at the camp I went to at the end of my sophomore year. I went to Alabama's elite camp or whatever it's called, and Coach Saban walked in. I was kind of at the far end of their indoor, and he walks in a back door, and it's like a hush just falls over everyone, and it just starts coming to you, and you look over, and there's just Coach Saban walking over with he has a couple guys around him, but everyone's just dead locked in, staring on him from the time he enters the building until the time he leaves. And so that was a pretty cool moment. That was cool to experience.
Man, talk about commanding a room. I mean, he's earned it 100%. No doubt he's earned it. I mean, we talk about how you got here today, the recruitment process. Did you always love playing football as a kid? What got you into football?
Oh, yeah. So there are more pros that coach in this world than don't coach in this world. We have a family. So it's a long line. My dad, just to start there, used to coach our summer performance course down here. That's what it's called, performance course. It's like our summer workout. And then from there, his dad and my great uncle are both in the Texas Coaches Hall of Fame. Wow. Have you ever seen McKinney, Texas?
Yes.
Ron POTUS Stadium that's out there?
Okay.
I
had no idea.
Yeah. That's their stadium name. That's my great uncle. And then from there, I have 2 or 3 cousins that one's at Pottsboro, one's at Salina, one's at Northwest Texas. And I have an uncle that used to coach up in Independence out near Frisco. And I think they have either 4 or 5 combined national championships between them. And so just growing up, football is always just kind of our thing. That's what we did. And so I fell in love from it from the very first time I was introduced and just kept going from there.
Yeah, so it's in the blood's what you're saying.
Oh, for sure. It's in the wall.
Yeah. So you are not just a great football player. You're actually a state champion shot putter. So does anything with shot put translate over to football? Because when you're younger, everyone says multi-sport athlete get you along further. Is anything with that translate over to football for you?
Absolutely. Not only does it work some finer details, it kind of works your footwork, it works your explosiveness, it works all this, but also just it gives you exposure. Anything you can do as a high school athlete, like powerlifting, shot put, even baseball, soccer, anything like that, just to showcase your speed, your power, your strength, anything like that. And it'll really help get your name out and get people to see you. That way they're not always just watching you run off the ball for football. They can see you out competing, kind of showing off your own talent wherever you kind of can't in whatever main sports you have, like football.
Yeah. No, that makes sense. And you talking about game film, it makes me ask you this question. Which do you prefer when coach he's got 6 straight run plays? Are you excited about that? Or do you want to mix it up and show off the talent and just the flexibility of both pass block and run block?
I like smash mouth football, so
That'd be the case. I just was curious.
Oh yeah, as an offensive lineman, you gotta love smash mouth football. If you don't like running the ball, you're probably not gonna be a top tier offensive lineman. But my favorite thing to do is we'll have 12 play drives, and 11 of the plays will be run plays, and we'll just be tempoing, going. And all of a sudden, coach calls a pass play, and I know it's going to Marcus Field, our freaking tall, athletic wide receiver. He got curly hair. He's a freaking athlete. Has 3 or 4 D1 offers. And I just look at him. I'm like, all right, dude, he's about to go jump over somebody. I'm going to be able to talk crap to the defensive line. After that happens, I'm going to be able to jog back to the sideline all happy and get a little break.
Yeah, I mean, there's one highlight that I when I was watching the highlight film was you're at the goal line and you have this like reach block over towards the nose tackle, and the end comes and you just like two hand, like it was like I don't want to say little kid, but it's like you just pushed like a toddler over because, I mean, you are a big man, but the edge rusher is a pretty good sized fella, and it's just like he just discards him like it was nothing, and they just walk right in for the touchdown. I mean, it was impressive.
That play, it was one of my more recent first times playing tackle because I played guard for most of the season, and we kind of had some injuries where we kind of had to switch it up, we had to put guys in here and here, but I went in for tackle. We're on the goal line, and I remember hitting the hip of the guy beside me, getting my guard to get some movement. And I remember hitting the kid, and like I knew I got a pretty good lick on him, but I didn't know it was that good until next Saturday morning. We pull up the film. I'm like, holy crap! I threw that kid. I really didn't know until I looked back and I was like, all right, you got chunked.
Yeah, you definitely you moved him with ease.
Yeah, which is a good sign as an offensive lineman. You gotta love that. Is when you're looking at this whole recruiting process, is there any part that you're like, man, I really enjoy this? I mean, you're a hot commodity. People want to have you come visit the campus. They want to give you the offer, but like, is there one part of the process that you really just enjoy?
Yeah, so people want me to come down and get on their campuses. They're asking for it pretty frequently, but I also get to go do that with family and friends. Like I get to bring the people I love with me, and we get to make like those memories are not something that everyone can say they have, but me and my family get to. And those are really, really big moments for me, and it's what makes this all worth it in the end.
So on some of your visits that you've been on, has there been like any like of the facilities or stadiums that you went to and you're just like, we're like, okay, this is like legit big time, facilities and or a big stadium that you're just like, okay, bigger than I was expecting?
Yeah, for sure. The two that come to mind, one would be Kyle Field. Whenever I was down there, kind of checking them out, that stadium, I can just imagine them rocking that. But the other one was the Iron Bowl for Alabama this past year. Going and watching Alabama and Auburn. I don't know if it was the stadium or the fans, but it was the loudest. Like I couldn't hear myself think. Me and my dad tried to have conversations face to face, and you can't hear anything. And so that was one of the loudest and best experiences I've ever had.
Yeah, I mean, imagine it's Alabama Auburn back.
Oh yeah,
they get at it down in Alabama, especially over that rivalry. So yeah, I imagine the stadium was rocking pretty well.
Yeah,
wow.
Yeah, they talk about how that difference of just playing in front of that many people and like takes some time to get used to. They talk about in baseball with the minor leagues, there's like 2,000 fans there, and all of a sudden there's 35. I feel like in Texas football, maybe you're a little bit ahead of the game than most of these other athletes in college football.
We definitely have a little edge because in Texas, everybody brings their bands, everybody brings their family, everybody brings the cheerleaders, so it's gonna be loud, and sometimes even hard for us to hear the snap count and stuff. Like we go off the clap, and so no matter what it is, sometimes it's just hard to hear. And translating that and already being prepared to know what to look for and know what to kind of listen for going into a bigger atmosphere, I feel like it does give you kind of an edge, kind of a little help.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, I would imagine. I mean, you look at some of those stadiums down in Texas, just high school stadiums, and you look at them and you're like, oh yeah, it's probably a small college, and they're like, oh no, that's a high school stadium for 3 or 4A high school football. You come to Oklahoma and you see our like 3 or 4A high school football, and it holds maybe 1,000 people. So I would imagine
it's crazy.
Yeah, how great is the facilities where you're at high school? Like, do you feel like, man, we got everything we need all the time? Like, everything, training facility, the whole thing.
we're extremely blessed in Lindale. You know, we have one of the best weight rooms around. It's kind of set off from everything else, so it's not like open. Not everyone's using it at once. We have sanctioned times where everyone can, so football can be in there and football's in there. And, you know, say softball wants to go in there, they can do that, or soccer can. So it's great. It's a really nice facility. We have one of the best training staffs in the state of Texas. They do great work with us, and they're constantly getting new equipment to help us out, get us back on the field. We have a 100-foot long or 100-yard long indoor, so it's 80 yards, 20 end zones. We have practice fields. We have a very, very nice stadium. So we're extremely blessed.
All right, so I plan this upcoming season. I plan on coming down and watching you play. I don't know if you have the schedule or anything yet, but is there a game that you pinpoint on the schedule and go, okay, this is the game you come to because it's going to be ruckus crowd and, you know, big time football?
Oh yeah, you want a really good game? Us and Van, Texas, we're side by side. We're neighbors. That's kind of our Red River Showdown. That's always a great one. We get after them. But as far as district goes, us, Kilgore, and Chapel Hill, we're the top three teams. We're called the District of Dooms because of us three teams. It's always fireworks. We're always getting after it. I mean, it'll be a great game. They're great competitors. They're great athletes. They have a great coaching staff, and so do we. And so we're always getting after it. We're always yelling. We're always, you know, fighting to the last minute.
I love that, man. I love that. District of Doom. What did you say, Doom?
District of Doom.
Dude, that is sick. That is a great nickname. They didn't call our school that at all. Not even a little bit. So.
No. We played 8-man football. Just so you know.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Come on now.
Yeah. I mean, just to be honest, I mean, we were what I think of all the accredited schools in the state of Oklahoma, we were the second smallest in the state.
Okay.
Gotcha. Yeah, but we did the ball. Y'all don't think you would have enjoyed playing. We passed the ball, I think, 95% of the time. It was so much fun. As a receiver,
yeah. Receiver, great.
2 questions left for you. One of which is, man, you talked so much about just bringing those memories with your family. You seem like you're a real family-oriented guy, and I think that's super cool to see that. Makes sense. You know, you're from Texas. It's just kind of in the family. Is there anybody you want to give a shout-out today? If they're watching today, you just want to give them a shout-out, what they meant to your story, just playing football, the whole thing.
Yeah, just my I mean, I know that's a go-to answer for most people, but they've done so much in my life, so much in my story. I mean, I can remember being 5 years old and back when I used to want to be a quarterback and throwing routes with my dad and my grandfather in the backyard with my brother. And everywhere I go, my dad has not gone on a single trip I have not gone on a single trip he hasn't gone on. He's never missed, like, even Little League baseball games, football games, no matter what it is, he's always there for me. And so he's been a huge part of my story and a huge just support factor to me. And I want to thank them for that.
Bro, that's special. I mean, not everybody's going to get that opportunity. So that is super cool. And I think we can, even Tubby, myself here, we can see that just in the way, man, way you hold yourself and you're going through this complicated journey that is recruitment season. If there was one takeaway that a kid 6 years from now, they somehow stumble on this podcast episode and they're like, I remember Casey. Oh, I remember this. What would your advice be for them if maybe they found themselves in your shoes down the road?
Yeah. Positions me. Something I've had to learn is you're going to have to make hard calls, and none of the texting BS, all that. Like, make the calls when you have to make a call. If you know you're not going to a school, make the hard call to the coach, be it man, be it face to face. And it's going to go over so much more smoothly than people expect. Because these coaches are expecting no. Like, they get told no more often than they get told yes. And so sitting up at night worrying about it or just shooting a quick text, it's just not worth it. Just pick up the phone, make that 5 to 10 minute phone call, and it'll go so much smoother.
Man, that is great advice. I mean,
yeah.
Everyone needs to write that down if you're getting recruited.
Seriously. So yeah, I've got just a few more things left. So, you know, we were talking last night. Yeah. So you have locked in 6 official visits.
Yes,
with the new NCAA rule starting in July that you can go unlimited now instead of just 5. So you got Georgia actually coming up this weekend, right?
Oh yeah.
And then Clemson, Texas Tech, Auburn, Bama, and OU at the end of July. What was it about those 6 schools that stood out above the rest?
I think we may have just lost him a little bit on the tech issues.
Yeah.
If it comes back, I think it's a good question. We got you back, Casey?
Yeah, y'all are frozen, but I can hear you. Okay, there we go. Now
okay, there we go.
There we go.
All right, do you need to repeat the question, or did you got it?
Yes, if you wouldn't mind.
Okay, so yeah, like you said, we were talking last night about your official visits you set up. So you got Georgia, Clemson, Texas Tech, Auburn, Bama, and OU. What was it about the 6 that stood out above the rest of the schools that had offered you?
Yeah, they had top tier cultures. They've each and every single one of them. You go look at that program. They have really, really good cultures, and they have something fundamentally that they can build on. They have a great base, and they're going to keep going from there. And that's really one of the main things I look for when I'm kind of going around looking at schools. But that was the main factor to get down, whittle down to those 6, and just kind of rocking from there, going from the culture, and then seeing where home will be.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, you exactly. I mean, all those schools. I mean, you look at Saban, and you look at what they've done down in Georgia, and what Venables is building in Oklahoma, and what Aranda's done, and all these other schools that have done is absolutely understanding. So this is one thing, and this is just kind of more like, I guess, advice, if anything. Just we've talked about this over the last couple of years throughout the podcast, and one thing that I gets me the most is these adults just trashing or bashing these 17, 18-year-old kids on their decisions. So just block out all the noise, block out all the fan bases, the fans, anyone's trying to push you to their school or whatever, and just trust yourself, trust your family and the people around you, and trust God. And no matter what happens, you'll make the right decision, because I'm sure this is an extremely stressful situation, point in your life right now, where you have to make as a 17, 18-year-old kid. So if you do all that, you can't go wrong. You'll make the right decision, end up where you're supposed to be.
Yes, sir. I appreciate it.
Man,
Absolutely.
We truly appreciate your time on the show today, Casey. And man, you've been an awesome guest. Thank you for being open and just going about going through the process with us, taking us on this. Bless you, bro.
Thank you. Sorry.
You're good. But man, we just, again, can't say thank you enough for taking the time to come on the show. I hope you got 2 massive fans here, and this W Sports Podcast has got you back. So we're looking forward to following this journey, and we're going to be cheering you on the day wherever you end up, man. We're gonna see if we can find those jerseys. Okay.
For sure. I appreciate y'all. Y'all been great.
Yeah. Appreciate it. Yeah.
Take it easy, man. We'll see you.
See y'all.
All right, man. What a guest. Top tier guest right there. I
mean, what a well-spoken, just well-rounded young man. The advice and everything. I mean, at his age, I definitely was not that mature about everything like that. I mean, shout out to his his parents for raising such a great young man the way they did.
Yeah, no, absolutely, and thank you, man, for just being open to work that relationship, just to be able to get our foot in the door. That is super cool for the podcast to be able to do that. So, who would have known all those details, man?
I mean, so the way this got all happened, we got to give shout out to one of our listeners, Quincy and Aaron Salyer. They were the ones that were able to just out of spur of the moment, just kind of, they're like, oh, we know him. Let's text it. We know people that know him. Let's text, see what happens. And so if it wasn't for them, this wouldn't have got set up the way it did. So huge shout out for them.
Yeah, it's tons of fun, man. It got me so hyped for college football season, man. Are you kidding me? I'm just I'm
so ready.
You can turn on, how you can turn on Google alerts for certain either people or news stories. Casey Poe, Google alerts. Boom. I want to know.
Right?
The day.
And just like you said, it makes you want to root for him even more. Just the way he held himself, and all that. It just makes you go, okay, yeah, I really am rooting for this kid to go out there and just be successful and get everything that he wants to in life.
Oh yeah. Well, there's no real way to transition. Normally, in a normal podcast, this would be the time where you'd have an ad and then you come back. Yeah. Well, listen, we do ads. We don't do ads on the W podcast. So here we are. We're gonna shift gears a little bit. We're still gonna stay in the college sports arena, because we started to talk about it briefly before we hit go, and we're going to hit some college softball, because if you know Tubby and myself, we truly enjoy college softball. I mean, it's so competitive. The atmosphere is great. Oklahoma University is the softball capital of the world. Norman, Oklahoma City is. That's where they play all those big games, even outside of college, and that's where the College World Series is. But they're getting their own facility too, which is super cool. So all that to be said, the number 1 team in this year's tournament is the Oklahoma Sooners again.
Yeah, everything you expected.
Yeah,
they are who they are. they've won what 44, 43 games in a row. I mean, they're on pace right now to break a record that hasn't been broken 30 years. Most wins in a season. And you lose, like Jocelyn Allo and Hope Troutwine from last year, and a couple other key parts in that. And you go, okay, they may have a down year. Lose 5, 6, 7, 8 games. Wouldn't be out of the question. And we're sitting here right now, 53-1.
Yeah.
And I don't want to get ahead of myself, but it's going to take a lot for someone to beat Oklahoma. I don't know if there is. I thought the one team that would give us the hardest, fight would be OSU, and
they did.
They tried. I mean,
top of the 7th or bottom of the 7th, I guess is.
Yeah.
So it's just a grind to beat Oklahoma. That women's team, they're so well coached. They have so much depth. I don't know that this year, like last year, we had Jocelyn Allo. Sorry, I'm adding an extra letter there. Jocelyn Allo, who just dominated, and she wasn't the only person, but she was the headliner. It feels like this year, it's really more of a depth thing. Like this is just sheer talent. This is what the Alabamas, the Georgias, just the best teams in college football do at times. Is this they just have talent that's just going to wear you down, and that's what I feel like we're seeing with Oklahoma.
Yeah, and there's not too many teams that you can look at and go, okay, they can throw 3 aces at you in 3 different games. They don't have to have the same girl pitch,
every single day,
115, pitches, one game, then turn around and throw another 115 the next game. I mean, they've got 3 girls that 2 of them are sub 1 ERAs and one sitting at like 1.19. So, and then all you got 2 of them in the National Player of the Year race. Jordy Ball and Jada Coleman. There's so, like I said, depth is the big key for them. Right, they can bring girls off the bench that are just going to come in and hit too. It's almost unfair at a point, but it speaks to what Patty Gasso has built in Oklahoma over the 23 years since she's been there. I mean, won 6 national championships with a program that was lost until she got there, and she has built this well-oiled machine that we're looking at possibly the greatest softball era ever.
Yeah, and it's at a point where the popularity in softball world has gone up. It hasn't peaked or it hasn't plateaued or gone down. It's still going up. So it's a great time to be, the best and be known as that type of head coach and building the culture. I mean, that really helps just with long-term success. Now, I do have a quick question. As you look into this is forecasting a little bit here. I think Mizzou is a bit of a challenge, more so than Cal, I would say, in their regional. We're not going to break down every regional, but I do want to get your opinion. You got UCLA, who's the 2 seed. You got Florida State out there. Who's the other one? Tennessee, Alabama, Oklahoma State, and then you have, where is it? Washington. So looking at that's the top 7 seeds, I believe, and it's a lot of SEC, Pac-12, and the Big 12 with Oklahoma State joining that round. If you're going to pick a conference to win out, and yes, it could be OU, but if you're going to pick a conference, who is it and who's the biggest challenger to that conference winning?
I mean, until someone beats Oklahoma, Oklahoma is absolutely the favorite to win. I don't. It's going to be tough for anyone to beat them. On their side of the bracket, the one team that kind of gives me somewhat of a nervousness is Alabama, because Montana Fouts is that great in the circle. The girl has 4 perfect games this year in a tough SEC, but they don't have the bats to, back her up so much. So it'll be, can they keep Oklahoma off the board enough and score enough themselves against Oklahoma's tough pitching? I don't know a whole lot about Tennessee. I know that they have an OU girl there, Donahue. She transferred from Oklahoma, went there. I don't know a whole lot about them, but I would honestly say probably OSU. They've struggled down the stretch. They've lost, a couple of series, that they weren't expecting. They, get beat up by Oklahoma. They threw 5 different pitches at Oklahoma. It's this thing that teams have been trying to do this year, throw more pitches at Oklahoma to try to throw them off so they're not getting used to them. And it, honestly, it's worked to an extent, but not enough to beat Oklahoma. But there's the familiarity there for them that they go, okay, we've seen them enough. We've hit them. They've hit us. But on top of that, it's Bedlam. So it's one of those things that you just don't know what can happen.
Yeah, and if you get that far into it, I mean, a lot of these teams, like the fans do travel well, but it's a lot easier to travel well when you're an hour away from the stadium rather than across the country. And I would say SEC is probably the deepest conference this year, just depth-wise. They don't have the top talent overall, like OU. I mean, they don't have OU yet. But if you look at the team going forward, I think they have so much depth that you could see them as that potential. You said Alabama, LSU's still out there. Kentucky's been pretty good this year. Mizzou, like I already mentioned, that SEC is pretty stacked overall as far as talent goes.
See, but the wild thing is that you look at the top 16 teams, so they all get regional, home field advantages during the regionals. Oklahoma has beat, I want to say 9 or 10 of the top 16 teams already.
Mm-hmm. So, which is schedule to be able to say that.
Yeah, and that's the thing. It's like you look at Oklahoma and you go, oh, well, the Big 12, you got Oklahoma, you got Texas, and maybe you can throw Baylor in there and Oklahoma State. But you look at the schedule in Oklahoma, they've already beat UCLA. They've already beat Duke, who's a top, 16 team. They've beat, I can't name them all, Washington. I mean, they beat all these teams already. So it's not like that you're going, oh, well, they played a bunch of, cupcake schedule. No, they played the top of the top. And the one team beat Oklahoma was Baylor, and it wasn't even a conference game. It was just in some little tournament that they just caught Oklahoma off guard at, one point, and they've rallied off 40-some wins in a row.
Yeah, which is super impressive. I don't know. If you didn't know this and you're interested, you're like, okay, we've heard them talk about it a lot. You can actually watch it if you have ESPN+. If you want to start a trial, do one of those free trials. I guess that they do that, but it's worth it for college softball, especially in the playoffs, as it starts here. I think this week, right? This week.
Yeah, I would think so.
Yeah, OU. I know they're playing. I think on ESPNU, which I think is weird, but ESPN+. That's where it's at. Just saying. All right, so we had also the other big news this week was NFL came out with their schedule. And yeah, everybody had this: the Chiefs versus the Lions to start the season out. I mean, they said that the Lions earned it, and I think they did. I think the Lions are a team on the right trajectory. They had a decent draft overall. People are excited about the Lions right now, something that you haven't heard in a while. And I think there's also a tagline of, hey, next year the draft is going to be in Detroit, so there's probably going to be some play on that at some point to help people forward think. But so that's what. Are you excited about that game?
Yeah, I think it'll be a fun game, to start off the season. Like you said, the Lions, they are on an upward trajectory. The biggest thing for the Lions is going to be Jared Goff. If Goff can play like he did the last 10 weeks of the season last year, they are a legit team in the NFC, because I think they got better defensively. I think the corners are still going to be somewhat of a question, but safety-wise, I mean, you bring in Chauncey Gardner-Johnson for $6 million or $8 million, absolute steal, and then Aiden Hutchinson another year, and building his body, getting stronger, faster. They've got some good young talent on that defense, and the offense it should be there, and it's all based off whether Jared Goff can get them going or not. Mm-hmm. But if they are, man, that's going to be a tough team, and they're going to play tough because Dan Campbell is going to make them play tough.
Yeah, and they're gonna they want to do it, but they're over under, like, from Vegas right now. The Lions is 9.5. That means they're expecting them to compete for a playoff spot. I don't know. I feel like that's pretty good. I would. That's a really good number. I don't know that they're going to win 11 games. I don't know that they're going to lose 11 games either.
But the thing is you look at the schedules, and the NFC North, all those teams, they got off easy. I mean, the schedules, just because they face up against the NFC South, who I think you could flip a coin, and you would probably have a better chance with the coin than you would be picking, because I don't know who's going to be that team. Is it Derek Carr and the Saints? We don't know.
But we don't know. I mean, I think so.
Yeah, you think so. I mean, we thought last year that the Buccaneers were just going to absolutely run away with the division.
Yeah, didn't even get 500.
Yeah, and so one of those things that the NFC North, the AFC South, even the NFC South, they've got easy schedule. One, because they have to play each other, and then they can turn around and play the NFC North.
Yeah.
So they got off easy. I think the Packers got off a great to start the season with a first year starting quarterback, and the start of the season they have against, what was it? They got week 1 against the Bears, Falcons, Saints, Lions, Raiders, Denver, Vikings, Rams, and Steelers. I mean, you set it up well, and a lot of those games are at home, so they've got the second easiest road schedule also. Set up great for them. The Jaguars is
with a new quarterback. That is great. Yeah, especially like you said, one of the easy road schedules. Well, that's great, man. That's awesome. And if you get the right team road later in the year, and they're not good, man, even better.
Yeah, right. It sets up well for them, and another team is the Jaguars. The schedule they got, there's a chance you could be playing against 3 rookie quarterbacks.
Mm-hmm.
But also, I mean, the whole London thing, it helps them out a lot. They're playing 2 London games, which is weird.
Can we just call them the London Jaguars by now? Like, is that
right? But the problem, the thing is for the Bills, that London game took away one of their home games. You know, it's still technically a home game, but we know London's home away from home for the Jaguars. And then, like you said, you get to play your division, but you play the 49ers, Chiefs, the Bengals, and the Ravens all at home. You don't have to play any of your toughest teams on the schedule. You don't have to play them on the road at all. And that lends itself well to a team that I think is going to take another step forward. I mean, you bring in Calvin Ridley, and you have now gave Trevor Lawrence a legit number 1 receiver with Christian Kirk, who put up the numbers and is going to be a great number 2 receiver. We saw Evan Ingram did. That's a team I think to watch out for, especially, you know, when it comes standing wise in the AFC.
Well, and here's the thing that they also have to look at is these teams that they're playing, the Falcons and Buffalo. That's who they play back to back weeks in London, and you're like, well, that's not fair. They're gonna have to do something. They're just gonna stay over there. Why would they not just stay over there when these other teams, they don't get to do that, right? So I think that will be an advantage. So even those are 2 technically home games, like you said, both of those are, which is great. I don't know how they do the money on that, but it's a different story. But looking at that, like, that's a huge advantage. They're going to be acclimated. They're going to be there. They're going to be on the right sleep schedule. They're not going to have to worry about it. And then the weird thing is they don't get a bye week the next week. So I guess that was the trade-off. Like, hey, we're going to give you the ability to say there are 2 straight weeks, but we're not going to give you the bye week following it. So sorry.
I guess that works out, you know, advantage wise. It's fair for each. Yeah, they get to stay there, but yet they have to turn around and play the next week. They don't get that bye week.
This is their 5-week schedule, and then it comes a bye week. So, but it's London, then it's at home in Jacksonville against Indy, and then it's on the road 4 days later on Thursday Night Football against the Saints on the road, and then they get a bye week. That is a tough, quick, tight turnaround. I'm like, ooh, man. So if they can get through all that, they can end the season pretty well. So I think you're right. The Chiefs have 1 noon game. They have 1 on Christmas, and they have 1 noon game.
Wow.
And the Christmas game is a Monday at noon. It's not a Sunday noon. Just saying. I'm just throwing that out there right now. So I thought that was crazy. So maybe some people are like, how do they just randomly pick people? They don't randomly assign schedules to teams. Every team earns their spot on the schedule. So every year, they're like, for example, the NFC North plays the AFC South. Is that this year? And then the next year, it'd be like the West and vice versa. So you get that team in each league. You also play, if you were last place in your division, you play all the bottom feeders in the divisions. That's how it works. So in case you're always wondering, like, why in the world are the Chiefs and the Bengals playing each other every single year? They're not in the same division. It's because they're both winning the division. So they're going to play each other, which sets up strength of schedules. It can set up teams that had a couple of retirements, some trades, all this other stuff to absolutely implode if they won their division and now they're on the downhill. But anyway, so that's a little side story. If you didn't know how the schedules work, that's how they work. And then there's a randomizer for the 17th game. I'm not really sure how they do that one, though. Do you know how to do that?
I honestly don't know.
Yeah, I thought that it was just going to be like, oh, we'll pick. So, like, the Chiefs Packers played each other this year, and that was the 17th game. I was like, oh, well, then this year that'll just be Chiefs Packers again, but it'll be in Green Bay. I don't think that's what it is. Maybe that's what it is. I don't think they play Green Bay.
I don't know. I just know they play, so I don't know.
Yeah, they play Green Bay, so it's not. Oh no, they do, and it's at Green Bay. That's it. Okay, found it.
And say, I knew they played each other. I wasn't sure where the game was, but yeah, I mean, but some of these bigger teams, like, or teams that we expect to be bigger this year, like the Jets, man, at the beginning of that schedule for that team coming in with a new quarterback, hoping that he can gel with those offensive guys.
I think Alan Lazard. What was the other Cobb?
Randall Cobb.
This will be fine. He's not throwing it to anybody else.
Yeah. So we got in this discussion last night on the card app. This guy was like, "Oh, because this is what I was saying. I was like, you got the Bills, Cowboys, Patriots, Chiefs. We don't know what the Broncos are going to be like this year. Will they be better? What is Russell Wilson going to do?
They're going to have to be better.
Yeah, Eagles, Giants. Yeah, at Mile High, Chargers, the Raiders, Bills, and Fins are your first 12 games with a new quarterback. Who, if it's anything like last year, your best wide receiver is a guy that young receiver Rodgers doesn't trust run young receivers. So how fast can he gel with Garrett Wilson? And if it's that 7 to 8 week period, we could be talking about a team that we expect to be playoffs or division, rival, top of the division. Worried right now, are they even going to make the playoffs if they don't gel fast enough? Because I think that's the biggest thing with Rodgers is that he doesn't trust the young receivers. It's great that he's already working out with them, and so hopefully for them that goes long, helps build up the process. But you got a tough schedule to begin with, and if you don't get it right early, you could be looking at a team through the first 6 weeks of the schedule, and you're sitting at maybe 2-4, 1-5. You're gonna be panicking because you're like, okay, we just made this trade, which possibly, more than likely going to be a first round pick to the Packers that we won't have this year now, but the quarterback that may not play next year, and set them up with a 12, top 10 pick maybe, and we're without a quarterback next year and we didn't make the playoffs.
Especially if he doesn't do well. I could see him seem like, I'm done. I'm going to go to my dark cave and just sign my retirement papers and then be like, oops, sorry, I signed him in the wrong spot. It was dark. That didn't count. I could see him doing that. If they can make it to 3-3 by their bye week, I think they can call that okay. We've at least gone through the growing pains. If they can get to 4-2, they would be thrilled. But if they get 2-4, like you said, 1-5, it'd be a disaster. So, any other of the other teams? You want to hit real quick?
There was one other team, and it was the Giants.
Okay,
you got a playoff team in your first 6 of your first 10 games are on the road,
which seems a little unfair.
Right? I was reading this. I was like, that doesn't sound like, yeah. It doesn't seem like it lends itself well to a team that made the playoffs. And yeah, so we'll see what the Giants are really made of. And hopefully for them, Saquon Barkley's there. If not, that offense is going to struggle immensely to start the season. So yeah, that's a team that you look at in the first 10 weeks and you go, yeah, we hope we're somewhere around the 5-5, 6-4, maybe 7-3, hopefully at the best, and we're good with the rest of the back into the schedule. But yeah, first 10 weeks, that's going to be a tough one for the Giants being on the road that much.
100%. Yeah, I hadn't looked at their breakdown with theirs being on the road versus at home. I just looked at the schedule, and then you're right, it's tough. And there's also the week 2 and 3. It's a Sunday Thursday turnaround. So, but it is on the West Coast, so they'll still be on the West Coast. So you can't imagine they're going to fly back to only to fly back. That's too much. So that's tough. Yeah. That's tough because look at that. They do get one of them at home, and then they got to fly again. They're going to be doing a ton of traveling. That is brutal. Start of their schedule. I don't know.
Yeah,
they may stumble out of the gate.
I want to say that they have the second hardest strength of schedule, and the Jets have the number 1 strength of schedule.
Or in New York.
Yeah. And hey, you got a bunch of primetime games for New York, but yeah, they may not win a few of those.
Yeah. Well, are you cool with sneaking in some basketball stuff real quick?
Yeah.
There's 2 things I want to go over. Number 1 was Ja Morant. Made a mistake again. It seems like someone pulls out an Instagram Live video or whatever, and he's like, I gotta pull out something, his gun. So we know it's not right. I think he's going to get suspended by the league like 20 games or something like that. I think it's going to be a huge number, which for the record is like a quarter of the season. That's a lot. What is some advice or what do you see working for him? Or do you think like this is just It looks like he's just going down a bad part of his career path.
Honestly, I think he has to find new friends. I think his friends are putting him in bad situations, and I think you are a product of the people that you surround yourself with. And I've heard that he doesn't surround himself with the best of people, and I think that is a big issue. And I don't know if how much of it is he's the bad influence or they're the bad influence, but you got to change something, because if not, we're talking about a world all talented player. One of the next possible faces of the NBA at some point with the excitement, the way he plays. And you're talking about a guy that in a couple of years we could go, wow, what could have been, because he either got himself in trouble or something way worse happened because you couldn't get mature enough to handle your situation. I mean, this is technically the third time this has happened. I mean, you had the 2 Instagram lives, and then you have the report about you pulling a gun on some 17-year-old kid at your house. So something's got to give. I heard that the suspension, they're thinking actually it's going to be somewhere closer to around half the season. And we talked about this with Howard, and it's not just about that. Now you're losing game checks, and now you're losing sponsorships. I mean, you just got your first jaw shoe from Nike, and now with what happened, if all the findings come out and the NBA throws down, that sponsorship with Nike is probably all but gone.
Yeah, and it just makes me think of Gilbert Arenas, who, yes, at that point he was injury plagued and he was not the same Gilbert Arenas that I remember watching growing up. But when he had that incident of unloaded firearms in the locker room, no less, it just never. I mean, he never made it back. He long suspension, but never made it back onto the court the same way. So you just hope that doesn't happen. Like you said, he's so talented. People love watching him. He plays above the rim. His head's above the rim because he's just so athletic, so good. And for a team like Memphis, who's not a huge market, they need a guy like that. They need someone who can help bring more excitement and passion to that game because, there's no other professional sports team. Is there a soccer team maybe? Not one of the power. There's not a power team. I mean, there's not one of the major four. So
the soccer team's in Nashville.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, so I don't know. That's just I hope that he can figure it out. The other thing was Steve Kerr's comments about the Warriors. Drove me up the wall. And he said, I'm going to paraphrase a little bit. We maxed out. We were on the fringe of the playoffs all season long. He said that, so essentially the Warriors team did the best that they could. I want to point out that they had a better record than the Lakers, who had to be in the play-in tournament, who are the 8th seed or something like that, or 7th seed, the 8th seed, and started off 2-10. You telling me that this team maxed out? No, I think they're tired. I think that's part of it. They've had so many long seasons, but last year they didn't make the playoffs. Or no, they won the championship, but the year before that they missed the playoffs. So it's not like they've had 8 straight years of deep playoff runs. I don't know. I don't know what happened. Clay obviously was not any good, but that comment made me mad. We maxed out. Are you kidding me?
Yeah, what are you saying? That this roster needs to be gone? You need to blow it up? Clay, Draymond, everything. I mean, I know that is a discussion they're having right now. Is do we move forward with the young talent? The Kuminga, the Mosley, the Moses Moody, stuff like that.
Doing that,
but Klay Thompson. The last the final 3 games of that series. I mean, I think it was like 8, 11, 13 points. The guy couldn't hit the broadside of a barn. It was, and everyone's like, oh, he's back. After the series that he had against Sacramento, oh, he's back. It's the real Clay. And I'm like, Clay hasn't had it since he came back from the ACL and then the Achilles. It's not been the same Clay. The shooting has dipped a whole lot, and the defense has gotten worse. It was just 2 calling cards: shooting and his defense. And so I'm surprised at how much the shooting has dropped off, because it's usually the last thing to go for an older player is the shooting, especially someone that was as highly regarded as 3-point shooter as he was. And I mean, Draymond Green's Draymond Green. I think defensive wise, he's probably not quite what he was, but he's still going to go out there as much as most people cannot has disdain for the guy because of the way he plays, but the Warrior fans probably absolutely love him because he's on their team. So it's just that I think they're at that point where dynasties crash eventually, and I think that's where it's at.
Yeah, he still shot 41%. He shot 10 threes a game, a career high, but 40% from the field this year, Clay did. So 21 points, 4 boards, 4 rebounds, 2 assists. So this was one of his best years almost overall, just to see how it all felt. I don't know. Maybe he's tired. I think that he's going to get a max deal from some team. May not be the Warriors, but I think he'll get a max contract from someone this offseason just because it's Klay Thompson. People will – if Minnesota went out and said, we're going to get Klay Thompson, I'd believe it.
Yeah, I mean, they just traded their whole organization for Rudy Gobert. So, yeah, it wouldn't shock me a whole lot if they went out and signed Klay Thompson to a massive contract.
Yeah, there will be at least one team that makes that deal.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So, any other thoughts on basketball before? I think we're going to get to some baseball here next, but
I say let's go some baseball.
All right. Well, I'm feeling much better. I can breathe now. The Cardinals played much better. My uncle's been saying this since I was a kid. Hey, it's a long season, so quit panicking. Now, for the record, it's much better. There's still 9 games under 500. They're still out of first place. They're still terrible overall. And there's still some things that I don't agree with Oli Marmol, but it's much better when you win, man.
That's what I said. So you have 2 really good series back to back, like they have, and the darkness starting to fade a little bit. And
there's some light in the garage when you have it cracked in the summer, and you just real quick. There it is.
Yeah, and the great thing is you got guys like Arenado who's finally starting to hit. Homered in 3 straight games against Boston, and the pitching do what?
He's already homered tonight too.
See, there you go, 4 straight games now. And so
halfway to Griffey Jr.'s 8, by the way, halfway.
So maybe things are starting to look up. The pitching has looked like it's pitched better the last few series. There's still maybe some questions with the bullpen, but it's one of those things. Like you said, you put together a good strand of games, series, 2 or 3 series in a row, and now things don't look as dire as they were. And on top of that, the rest of the Central has kind of fallen off. I mean, the Brewers are still kind of winning, but the Pirates, I mean, the Pirates have lost 9 out of their last 11 games.
Yeah, they've been as soon as we put them on our talk notes last week, which we didn't have time for, it was like, are they for real? As soon as we did that in prep for the episode, they went like 7-game losing streak. So,
yeah, and so there's got to be somewhat of we're only in May, and we're only halfway through May. There's still June, July, August, and September left of baseball to play. So we've seen it's unworldly for the Cardinals to go on a massive win streak. 2 years ago, they went on a 17-game win streak to get themselves into the playoffs. So, so it's one of those things that you can't write teams off too early because of the fact that, man, we're only 2 months into the season.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, in the chat, we just had a question also from it that we'll get to that here in just a second, Colin. I love the question about Alek Manoah, resident Blue Jay fan, because we don't need to keep talking about the Cardinals. We can move on from them, but the light was there. There's still lots of questions. They still don't have an ace. And like you said, the Pirates, we hit them real quick. The Pirates are at this point, you said, lost 9 of they won this week. So they're 22-19, which is still not terrible. They're still at +9 in the run column. But I think at the end of the year, if they had 82 wins, we would say that was a lot more than we thought. And that would mean that they're playing under 500 the rest of the year.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, you look at those 11 games, and they were outscored 57-20.
Yeah. I mean, they still don't have O'Neal Cruz, but I'm starting to question if he's going to be a healthy player going forward or if this is just who's going to be.
Yeah, I think we've seen the guys that started off hot. And I think if anyone expected the Pirates to do what they did to start the season and to maintain that, we're absolutely crazy, because that's not something I looked at and was like, yeah, they're going to be this type of team the whole season and be the top of the NL Central. I just didn't expect it at all. And this is what I expected to happen, was for them to finally hit a rough patch and it just start crumbling around them.
Yeah. Well, Hopefully for their own sake of Pittsburgh and that beautiful ballpark, that they do stay at least competitive and stingy. Unless they're playing the Cardinals, then they can lose all those games. That's fine with me. And everybody's going to get to play them this year. Every team does, the way the schedule's set up. So let's talk real quick about Toronto. Excuse me, not Tampa Bay. Toronto, who is 24-16, still 6 games out of first place. And Colin brought up a great question. Alek Manoah, we've seen enough of him at this point in 2023 where he is 1-3 with a 5.4 ERA. He's given up more hits than he has innings pitched, but not only that, he also has 32 walks. That's like a walk. It's 2 walks about every 3 innings. It's insane. His whip is 1.8, which is huge. A good whip is for him in the past has been 1. So almost double that. Is this one of those things? He asked the question, you send him in AAA. Hey, figure out the kinks. Let's go back. He still has options. I believe he still has options, but he still has the ability. They can do it without his approval with the way the bargaining agreement is set up because he doesn't have enough service time yet.
Yeah. I feel like a guy like Manoah, the competitiveness that he has, I think sending him down would probably do more harm than it would do good. Just because he has so much fire and he's so competitive. I think for him, it may ruffle some feathers for him, or it could go the opposite direction and maybe light a fire on him or something. I don't know. But from what I've seen from the outside, I think there's certain ways you go about that. And I don't know if he's one of those guys that you just sit down, maybe skip him in a starter too, and have him throwing in the bullpen constantly trying to figure out what is going on, because obviously there's something mechanic wise, or he's tipping his pitches or something has to be going on for him to go from a top 5 Cy Young candidate last year to a 5 ERA and a whip of 1.8. Something has to be going on mechanic wise, and they're going to have to figure it out. And that's all right now. It's on the pitching coach. If your pitching coach isn't able to fix what is going on, I don't know even if sending him down AAA is going to help a whole lot, because if there's something wrong mechanically, it's just going to reoccur, and you bring him back up and it's still going to be the same problem, because the talent, yes, it is AAA. It's the highest form of minor league, but there is a big difference between AAA and the major leagues. It's just,
and the coaching is best at the major league level is what they say. I will say this. Last year, the last month of the year, as a Cardinals fan, I saw Adam Wainwright be garbage. And then nobody caught the fact that his stride had shortened by a foot. So, yeah, the Cardinals have a new pitching coach, and it's not going great. So, anyway, I'm just saying someone's got to look at every small detail, and hopefully Alec can do that. Because with control problems like Colin put in the chat today, I 100% agree with it. That's one of those things that there's something mechanically he's doing wrong that's either not repeatable, or he's tipping his pitches with the way he's throwing the ball or his elbow, little things like that. It could be the smallest thing. But even today, he played against the Yankees, 4 innings, gave up 5 earned runs, a couple walks there too. So definitely not the Alek Manoah we want. But this Blue Jays team is deep enough that they can tread water really well. They just swept the Braves. I mean, this Blue Jays team this whole AL East looks stupid good this year.
Yeah. And there's another thing, and it's something I've mentioned over the last few weeks, and I think a big thing also is the pitch clock is playing a factor into some of these aces struggling the way they are, because they aren't able to work at the pace that they were normally, working at. And so now they're having to speed everything up more. And I think it is throwing their mechanics and everything off, because they're like, okay, I have to make sure I'm engaged in pitching before it hits 0, or I'm giving up a ball no matter what. And so I think the pitch clock is taking some guys longer to adjust to it, and that could be a big factor. I mean, look at Sandy Alcantara. He has not pitched great this year either. I mean, we talked about him last year and at the beginning of this season, like, okay, this guy is the best pitcher in baseball, and we haven't seen that from him. So I honestly think that it is mechanic wise, and there could be factors with it, like I said, the pitch clock, him getting used to getting to that rhythm of, okay, I can't just walk around the mound. I can't, do all this stuff. I have to get the ball and immediately go back to the rubber and get ready and set the pitch.
Yeah. Well, and there's plenty of pitchers who pitch too fast And even this is still making him go almost even faster. I'm like, whoa, you got to breathe. Like, let's go. So it's again, that's a pitching coach thing. Let's fine tune, tweak the details. And I think we've seen Alcano be too good for 2 years for this to be the norm. So he has to regress to the mean of, oh, he's actually better than this. And no matter, like, the problem is in their schedule, they don't have a day off, I think, for like 2 weeks. So it's hard to skip a start, especially if they get spring weather and they rain out. So then you get a doubleheader. So if they have the ability to skip a start, maybe. I don't know if they do, but that might be one of those things. So, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, all you got to do is pull up one guy from AAA and let him start one game and just say, hey, let's take a breather. Let's figure something out real quick. There has to be something mechanic, and just sit down and watch the tape, delivery, make sure he isn't flexing his hand weird when it's in the glove and tipping a pitch or something. You're going to have to break down everything to the most minute, of details to try to figure something out. Because if it's going this long and they haven't figured something out, then that's on the pitching coach, because that is your job, is to be able to look at them and go, okay, this is what you're doing wrong. We need to fix this, and this is how we do it. And if you aren't able to do that, then you're probably going to have to get someone else in there to do it, because that's your job.
Yeah. Well, if you have the AL East, which has Tampa Bay still doing a great job, they're 5-5 in the last 10, which makes sense. But they were at one point on pace for like 120 wins. Do you think that they get to 100 wins? I mean, they only need 70 more.
Yeah, I think they do. But man, they've taken some hits in the rotation, but this is one team that you can kind of look at and go, they're able just to find guys and throw them in there and them do their jobs. But man, you lose Rasmussen. It sounds like it's possibly going to be for the season. They put him on the 60-day IL the other day. And you had Springs out, and you had Glasnow out at the beginning of the season. So now you got three of your top pitchers on the 60-day IL. I think Springs, he has to end up having Tommy John. Sounds like Rasmussen, that may be where they're heading to, is Tommy John also. They said some type of flexor, his elbow, when they're like, that's usually not a good sign. So there's going to be some questions of how well is the pitching staff going to be able to pick up for the loss of, three top of the line, rotation guys.
Well, yeah, I mean, they're not the only team dealing with that, though, too. I mean, we can get to here in a second, but the Braves right now with Max Fried and Kyle Wright both out 2 months. And on top of that, they like Spencer Strider striking out everybody. I think he should change his last name to Spencer Strikeout, because, dude, it feels like it's almost 2 per inning, which is an absurd number for a starter. But at the same time, they're almost wanting to keep him in a box of like, hey, be careful, don't overpitch him, which again I'm not always for, but they're worried about him getting hurt in the long run by pitching too many innings. So they're gonna have to deal with this balance. And as good as this division is not maybe as much as what we expected. I mean, there's only one team above 500. It's the Braves, who just got swept by those Blue Jays, who, by the way, Colin said he was at the game, the walk-off, which, I mean, that is just a way to go to a baseball game. And the team walks it off. Nothing better.
Yeah. I mean, Strider's sitting at 15.2 Ks per 9 innings. Right
now. A stupid high number. You could see it as a closer. That makes sense as a closer. A great closer. We'll put it that way.
And he's on pace to break that record. And the record, I don't count it because it was in the 2020s. That don't work because you didn't pitch enough. But yeah, I mean, the Ks per 9 for Shire is absolutely insane. And yeah, they got Elder, who his kind of came out of nowhere and his pitch great, but you've seen a little bit of fumbles from him in the last couple starts. So maybe people are starting to figure him out a little bit more. And yeah, you got 2 of your top guys with Ian Anderson struggling down in AAA, the guy that I think a lot of people have penciled in as that fifth starter. And then when he didn't make the rotation, where a lot of people are like, oh, what's going on? And then you watch him pitching down AAA, there's something mechanically wrong with him, command wise or whatever. And so there's not really a whole lot you go, okay, we got this guy next, down in the minors that we can bring up like they did with Strider last year, that you can go come up and, help out the rotation and tell, except maybe Michael Soroka. And that's depending on how healthy is Soroka and when will he be able to come up to the majors.
All that being said, this team is still, I think they have a 5-game lead in the division. Their division is a winnable division for them to weather this storm. Matt Olson's playing like typical Matt Olson right now. It's a 220 batting average or something like that with a bunch of home runs and some RBIs. So like Austin Riley's still really good. I think they're finally figuring out to stop playing Acuna. Not Acuna. Wow, that would be a dumb decision.
Don't play Acuna.
You know what I'm talking about. Ozuna.
Yeah.
But Ozzy Albies is having a great season, I think. So I think their offense can keep up with it because the teams that they're playing in the division aren't as good. Miami's getting outscored a ton. Philly still not having a great season from their top two aces. So there's just different pieces to the puzzle here. It's a very long season, so I think they can weather the storm well. But Bryce Harper's already back, which I'm shocked by. I think it was one of the quickest turnarounds ever for Tommy John surgery. Yeah, he's playing DH, but still, he's back.
Yeah, I mean, everyone was penciled in end of July for his return, and then you get it beginning of May, and it definitely helps. But yet again, how much is it going to help? Because you've got guys that just aren't producing. I mean, you got Schwarber. Everyone knew what was going to happen with Schwarber. Around 200. Yeah, he's got 8 home runs and all that, but man, I don't think anyone expected Nola and Wheeler to struggle the way they have this year. And that was the one thing, they're like, oh, they went out and got Taijuan Walker. They've got, a little bit more depth, starting rotation wise. And I was like, man, that's still, to me, their whole pitching rotation and their bullpen were still the biggest questions for me outside of Nola and Wheeler. And now with Nola and Wheeler both not having the, typical Nola Wheeler type seasons, now there's even more questions. Can the offense score enough until Nola and Wheeler turn things around to keep them in the hunt throughout the playoffs? I don't know. There's just, you've seen them. They're already so frustrated. I mean, did you see the whole thing with Harper yesterday? With he claps the glove and he lit him up like that. Yeah. You just won 2 out of 3 against one of the worst teams in baseball, and you're mad because the pitcher smacks his glove. I mean,
yeah, I thought that was ridiculous. When I heard that, when I saw that I was like, what did he do? That? Harper, you've been a part of way worse, man. Way worse. When people threw, he threw the helmet at the other pitcher that kept beaning him year after year.
I cannot remember his name. What?
Wasn't it Hunter Strickland, right?
Yes.
Yeah, just kept beaning him and finally tosses his helmet at him. Yeah. I don't know. You look at Trey Turner this year. What do you think his numbers are? Have you seen him?
So I know they're not great. They're not what they signed him for. They definitely aren't matching up to that. Yeah. I know I saw a few weeks ago he hit his first home run in Philadelphia, and it was like, almost a month into the season. So I don't know the exact numbers. I just know they're not great.
Yeah, he is 4 home runs, 10 RBIs, only 5 stolen bases the way this year is, with a 260 average and a 716 OPS. Not very good. Probably playing good defense, but he's got to do better. This team has too many stars to be this bad. I think they should be able to compete for a wild card spot down the stretch, but we'll see. Because the Mets are doing exactly what we said they would, and their ownership is now learning that just because you write a check for $380 million doesn't mean you're going to win 380 million games.
Yeah. They're already trying to figure a way out of all this, and you don't have a way out. You have to keep with what you are going, and you're going to have to try to figure something out within the organization and hope that these guys that you sign these massive contracts to either get healthy or figure something out and start hitting, because injuries has been a big part of why the Mets haven't played so well. They have had a lot of injuries, especially starting rotation wise, and a couple suspensions. But man, it's not something I think anyone expected them to be this bad so fast. You're like, if they play around 85 wins is kind of a down year because we expect with as much as they're paid, and now they're not even quite on pace for that. So
we didn't expect them at this point to have 1 fewer losses than Washington.
Yeah.
Just throwing that out there.
The Mets are going to Met. I hate to say it. I hate for the Mets fans because I know a couple Mets fans and great people, but it's just
terrible franchise.
Yeah. Cohen thought, okay, let me write this check and we'll pay $800 and something million this year just in total contracts and this one free agency, and we'll call it good. And it's not working.
Well, how about this? We got 3 NL West teams. You got the Dodgers, who are going to Dodger, won 5 in a row, just swept the Padres, shut them out again. So it clearly that they still have the number. The Dodgers still seem to know something about the Padres that the Padres just haven't figured out yet. And the Diamondbacks are 23-18 with the positive run differential, not by much, but enough. Which of the teams, as a Dodgers fan, are you more worried about, the Diamondbacks or the Padres long term? Because I think we can both agree it's not the Rockies, not the Giants.
It's the Diamondbacks. It's that they are that scrappy team that they just don't go away. And I don't think you could say the same for the Padres, because we've seen what the Padres have done. I mean, they seem like they have this defeatist mentality where it's like, okay, we're down. Okay, we're out. Let's not even really try. It's like, I mean, Soto, he's picked it up over the last couple of weeks. He's batting 260 now, all that. But now you got Bogarts, who is on fire, is now just absolutely fell off the face of the planet. We don't know where he went, and now he can't hit. And Tatis, the experiment out in outfield, defensive wise, hasn't been the greatest. It's been shaky. Yeah, it is expected, but the rotation, I'm not worried about that rotation, and I'm not really worried so much about the Diamondbacks, except for Gallen and Kelly. They don't really have much behind those two guys. But the Padres, the biggest thing for me is that the bullpen that they had last year, especially towards the end of the season, was so dominant, and now it's real shaky. That they have a lot of guys that have 4, 5, 6 ERAs, and I mean, Hader's still pitching, doing Hader things, but Dodgers have homered off of him twice, and they're 2 left-handed batters. So I don't know. I'm not worried about them. I'm more worried about the offense for the Diamondbacks, because no one's really looking at the Diamondbacks going, okay, the Diamondbacks have a chance. This was my sleeper team at to push into the playoffs this year. If everything has gone right and everything has started to go right for them, they still need another pitcher. And Brandon Pfaadt, the first 2 starts were not great, but then that third start, it looked like the Brandon Pfaadt that everyone was expecting. The young guys finally, I think, getting things situated, had a great, outing. And so I think that maybe possibly this is the guy, because I mean, down in AAA the last couple of years, he's had somewhere around like 12, 13 strikeouts per 9 innings, had the most strikeouts out of any pitcher in the minor leagues last year. So it's a kid that has the ability to do it. He's just got to put it together. And that third start, it looked a lot better than the first 2 starts. First 2 starts you looked at and you go, yep, this kid is ready.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
Yeah. And so that third start, it looked like, okay, this is what we were hoping. And all they really need him to do is be, like a, 4.9 or like 3.9 ERA. Somewhere around 4 isn't, bad for a third starting pitcher, especially with the way the offense has been this year in baseball. So you've got Gallen doing his thing. Merrill Kelly's looked great. You just need another solid pitcher to throw in that rotation, and they could be a dangerous team.
Yeah. Well, we have one more division we haven't talked about, but is there any thoughts on the Dodgers you want to hit? Max Muncy went on a tear. It feels like he's cooled back off a little bit. I think he's like 1 for his last 23. He's a streaky hitter at this point in his career. I think that's okay. Like, we know who he is. But how Dodgers, they're sneaking up there in the top of the NL, doing it again.
Yeah, I mean, we're sitting in first place in the National League now, but I'm still somewhat worried about the bullpen. The bullpen hasn't been sharp this year, and that's the thing. I'm hoping that they're able to go out and get some guys, but they've started to pull up a couple guys like Alex Vesia. He was great last year, and this year it's not been anywhere close to what he had been. And so they go down in the minor leagues. They had Victor Gonzalez down there all last year. There's something mechanical wrong with him that he wasn't able to figure out, and they sent him down. And now he's come up. He's been one of our best, relief arms out of the bullpen. The bullpen has gotten better over the last few weeks. The ERA, I mean, there for a couple of weeks, they were the 3rd worst bullpen in the major leagues, up until the last couple of weeks where they kind of started to figure things out. I still think there's some worries down at the bottom of the lineup. I mean, Austin Barnes, the only reason he's on the team is because he's Kershaw's personal catcher. And that's the only reason.
So bad. He's 0.088 right now.
Yeah. And then
300.
Chris Taylor, every time he hits a home run, I look at my dad and go, well, there's his one hit for the week.
Yeah.
Because
he's at 196. Yeah. And
but he's got like 7 home runs.
Yeah. 7 home runs on 19 hits. And he has 38 strikeouts. He's striking out over 33% of the time. This is every game he should have at least 1 strikeout, maybe 2.
And that was at one point he had 5 hits and 4 of them were home runs.
Yeah. That's just he's a very all or nothing guy.
And so there's some issues there. Trace Thompson doing exactly what I expected.
Yeah.
David Peralta, I expected a little bit more from David Peralta. I've been kind of disappointed with the way he's played. And I mean, Rojas, I think this is what everyone expected. They need a shortstop. They need to call the White Sox and figure out what they can do to get Tim Anderson. Bring Tim Anderson. I'm sorry, I called dibs.
Oh, you probably also will again. The Cardinals are going to say, no, we believe in Paul DeJong still.
Hey, DeJong's been hitting.
Yeah, okay. But how long? He did have a bomb in Fenway, though. Man.
Yeah.
Okay, so you have that. JD Martinez, he's been about what? I mean, I think he's just not as good as he used to. I think he's just taking a step down in his ability.
He was hurt.
You think he's hurt?
He was hurt. He was dealing with the back issue, and he was trying to play through it, and it wasn't going so well. And so he was on the IL for about a week or so, and he just came back a couple of games ago. And first game back, he hits 4-run home run, or had 4 RBIs, had a home run. So I think maybe there was something tweaked in his back that he was trying to play through, and it didn't work out too well, and the numbers were kind of down. So hopefully he was able to heal up enough, and the numbers we'll see him start rising a little bit.
Well, the good news is the Dodgers, they do have Will Smith back for a couple of weeks now. I think it's 2+ weeks from that concussion, which is nice because he didn't have any symptoms once he started playing again. So I think that's awesome. I mean, he's one of the best catchers in baseball right now, especially offensively. So that'll help bring depth. I think the Dodgers, like you said, bullpen, all right, they can address that. The other one was bottom of the lineup, they can address that. So all that being said, the Dodgers best team in the NL again. They're going to be fine again. They're going to lose in the playoffs again. Anyway, you said probably.
I wouldn't. I don't trust Dave Roberts in the playoffs. I just don't.
I don't trust Ollie Marmol in the 7th inning with a good starting pitcher going. We're not really going to hit much of the AL Central right now. It's just not a fun division to talk about. There's 4 bad teams in there. We're not going to waste our time. When the White Sox start to sell, we'll talk about it.
Yeah.
The Royals are 12-30, man. Like, yeah, okay. This is a team that last year I said was going to sneaky almost playoff. No. This year, at the beginning of the year, I was like, they might do it. No, they're not. They suck. All right. Anyway, so we got the AL West, and they got the Rangers, who are absolutely dominating. Only bad side is they aren't going to have DeGrom even longer now. So they thought it was just a minor thing. We'll do it as a precaution. No, it's going to be like a month or something now. So this is exactly what we thought, right? It's all or nothing with him in 2 or 3 more weeks, and he was already out for like 2 or 3 weeks. So this is over a month now. 4 to 6 weeks, a long time.
Yeah. I'm still not completely sold on this team. I know you look at the numbers, you look at the runs. I think offensive-wise, I'm not worried about the offense.
Yeah.
It's the starting pitching. Can Nathan Eovaldi, who was one of the worst starting pitchers last year in baseball, he's thrown, 27 consecutive scoreless innings, 28? He's not going to keep that up. And the rest of the starters, Martin Perez has had a down year compared to what he did last year.
Yeah.
And, Gray's looked decent. But I don't think there's a whole lot rotation-wise that, especially with DeGrom being out, I don't expect Eovaldi to be able to do this. So I don't know if they have the pitching down the long term. And I think a lot of the record is based off of them beating up on bad teams. They have 15 wins against the Phillies, the A's, and the Royals. So that's over half of your wins against 2 of the worst teams in baseball, and one team in baseball that everyone, thought was going to be good has had a down start of the season. So I still, they've beat some good teams too, but they beat up on a lot of bad teams. And that's what I still think that there's some question marks there. The Reds record's probably better than anyone expected, but the Reds have started to slip also.
Yeah.
And they beat up on the Reds too. So there's another couple wins there. And I just think it's a product of who they've played. Yeah, I think the offense is there, and I think they could push for a playoff spot, but I don't think they're as good as what they're showing right now. I think that we're going to see them hit the stretch here in the next maybe couple weeks, a month, and we're going to see them kind of taking a little bit of fall, because I have to believe that the Astros are going to figure something out.
Why would you want to believe that? We don't want that at all.
I don't want to, but it's what they do. I mean, they started out slow last year, and we thought, oh, could this be the final? Finally, they're starting to slow down, and then they go on and win the World Series. So, and it reminds me a lot of what the Angels did, but just not to a certain extent, because I think they're better than what the Angels were last year. But it kind of, we looked at that team, and they had the lead over the Astros, and they had this big record, and we're like, oh man, Angels, are they for real or not? And then we've seen them take an absolute dump on the rest of the season. Yeah, they said, oh, we had a good couple months, we're good, we'll call it in for the year, and we won't let Trout or Tom play.
What the heck, guys?
We're still here, guys. Yeah,
we're still doing historically incredible things, and lost to the A's 9-6. Great.
Yeah. Yeah. But offensive wise, I think they have the offense to be a good team and show what they are doing right now. I think offensive wise, it is, what they're doing, I think is more sustainable. But I think the pitching is going to be the problem. If DeGrom can't figure out how to pitch more than 4 innings, then have to get pulled out of the start and then miss 2 or 3 weeks. And then I just don't believe that this is the Nathan Eovaldi we're going to see the rest of the year. It's just, I don't think it's happened. I think we'll see the Nathan Eovaldi somewhere around the 4 ERA at, by the time All-Star break comes around, and we'll go, okay, yeah, this is what we expected.
I expect the offense to still stay up for Texas, though, in comparison to what I see on paper and production so far. I just don't see it with Houston. I see their starting pitching to be probably the better, like you said. I agree with that. I think Houston can do a better job with Valdez and Javier and what's Hunter Brown done this year?
Hunter Brown.
Yeah, Hunter Brown. Okay, yeah, his WHIP's a little high, but he's just walking guys. But you look at those guys, I and their bullpen, I think they could do a better job long term. But that offense, I'm just not feeling it. Jose Abreu still doesn't have a home run and 154 at bats. Jeremy Pena has been good, but he's not been as advertised last year in the playoffs. Everyone was like, this guy's going to be incredible. He's the next great shortstop for our team. We don't need Carlos Correa anymore. Bregman's doing Bregman things. He didn't do 100. We talked about him last week. I don't know. I don't believe the offense on this team can overcome as much. So if the offense can stay afloat enough with the Rangers, or like maybe they have a better offense, and maybe that will win out at least long term in the season for the Rangers to outlast and win the division, which is important. Because gosh, we do not want to see Astros win this division again.
Yeah, I don't know. I just that front office, they're going to do something, or something's going to happen, or all of a sudden it's like the lights are going to turn on. Altuve, he just is getting back from the IL, so maybe him being in the clubhouse, playing sparks something, and they go on like a 10-game win streak, and now they're top of the division because the Rangers, kind of fall off a little bit or something. It's just history has shown that this isn't the team, and teams do eventually fall off, and so maybe we are starting to see that, but I still believe that they'll figure something out, and whether I want them or not, I don't. I hope that they end up down there around with the A's, but I just think, just based off of history, I just don't see it happening.
Yeah, I agree. Well, I don't know. Any final thoughts on baseball before we hit next week's episode?
Nope, I think I'm good.
Man, that was a full episode. We talked about a lot of different stuff. And you know what? It's going to be a great season, off season for football. We're going to keep the conversation going. But just a big shout out and a thank you again to our guest today, Casey Poe, offensive lineman in Texas high school football, making some key visits. So just keep his name on the radar. Keep that Google Alerts thing going, because this dude is legit. He's a great guy, and just can't say thank you enough, man, for joining us today on the podcast with the W Sports Podcast. So, and thanks, Tubby, man, for helping create that connection.
Yeah, it was a whole lot of fun. Like you said, just talking to the kid, he's got a great head on his shoulders, and he's going places. Number one interior offensive lineman, and according to On3 Recruiting. I mean, just incredible for a kid. Lindale, Texas isn't the biggest town in Texas. I've been there a few times. It's not the biggest, but for him to be able to do what he's doing, and like I said, has the family first, God first type mentality. I mean, you're going to go places whenever you have that, and can't wait to see where it goes. And yeah, 100% appreciate you coming on and just telling talking to us about the journey that you've had.
Yeah, absolutely. And everybody, if you didn't know, the chat was going off today, so thank you everyone who jumped in the chat as well. You guys made this show incredibly fun today. So we can't wait till next week's podcast episode. If you didn't know, again, we got bonus content over on YouTube. You can watch the whole podcast on YouTube, the whole interview with Casey, the whole thing. You can go make sure you subscribe to the show. We're on our journey to 250 subscribers before we do our next giveaway. Till then, you can always download the podcast with Apple Podcasts, Spotify, anywhere else you're going to listen to podcasts. I don't know where else it would be, but those two places are great places to start. And we will make sure we get the link in the description of the show for Casey's highlights. So if you're like, hey, I want to see this guy in action, that mean streak that he talked about, you're going to be able to do that with the podcast episode itself. Till then, we will see you all next week.
Go Lindale Eagles.
See ya.
See ya.
Well, that Go Lindale.